sneakers. Today we're doing part 5 of our sole swap series on this pair of black NYCs. So previously we put our barge cement on the uppers and the soles, and now we're going to go ahead and bond them together. So to get started, we're going to line this up first and make sure that it's fitted correctly. We've already sanded the air units to size, and I covered that in a previous video. Alright, make sure that that's where I want it to sit. We're reusing the original sole on this one, so it should fit pretty well. Okay. I like how that looks. Oh, it's pretty even on all sides. Looks like we have the blue line where it needs to be. So we're gonna go ahead and glue this in, or heat this, and get it set. So we're gonna heat from inside. Make sure that you hold it steady with your hand. Now, heating from the inside like this might not work on every project. Some projects might have much thicker pieces internally and the heat won't be able to travel through. This pair has, well, all other Air Force Ones have a pretty thin lasting board, so whenever you heat like this, it goes straight through and it activates that adhesive underneath. So we're gonna press down the heel first, make sure that it's still set where we want it, and it looks like it is. And then we're gonna put our hand in, and we're gonna put that toe down. We're gonna press a bit there. That looks like it stayed where we wanted it. Now we're gonna put the side, and we're gonna slowly just keep putting pressure on this lasting board. And we're gonna worry about doing the sides next, but right now you want to make sure that you've got a really firm bond with the upper and the sole, and you want to make sure that it's placed correctly. And then you can worry about the sides later. The sides are always pretty easy to fix up after the fact, but if your fitment is wrong, or if your initial bond is weak, then it's not going to matter. You're going to have to redo it. Alright. This feels pretty secure. I think we got the fit that we were looking for. Looks good. So the next step in the process, I'm going to do something that probably deviates a bit from most people's process. For this pair, since the sole fits so close to the shoe, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this in before heating it. And the reason that I'm going to do it that way is the stitching is going to act kind of like a natural clamp, like it's going to hold the upper really close to the sole. So when I go in and I heat it after it's stitched, it should immediately bond. And then I'm going to also be putting pressure all the way around. But I'll bring it up so that you can see we have a little bit of a gap here, and that's normal whenever you put the upper in, because you haven't gone around the sides yet to heat it and put pressure on to seal it. And the reason that I'm going to do the stitching first is that if we were to heat it and bond it right now and then stitch it afterwards, the stitching sometimes, like the pressure from it, will create weak spots in your bond. So if you were going to stitch it after bonding the sides, you would probably want to wait maybe like 2 days or so, to make sure that it's fully set and dried. And even then, I think sometimes the pressure, if you don't have the holes completely aligned and you have to like not drill, but punch a new hole or two, then that pressure could create weak points. So we're gonna go ahead and stitch it first. I like the way it's placed. It feels very secure. Like, I mean, you can see it's not going anywhere. Very well lined up in the front and the back. So we'll go ahead and stitch it into place. It's just a regular white thread. Here it is. So 1 millimeter thick, and we'll cut it to size and then get started. And then after we've done that, then we're gonna heat it and put pressure all the way around. Try to get the sides clamped as tight as possible, and then we'll set it up for the night. We'll come back to it tomorrow, and or we might give it 2 days, and then we'll stress test it and then see where our weak spots are, if any. Sometimes there aren't. And then we'll apply more adhesive as needed and focus just on those weak spots to make sure that everything's tight. And then after that, we'll give it like one final cleaning and remove any excess glue, touch everything up, and then send it back to the customer. So we'll get started on the stitching now. And this part will probably take a little while, but I don't know. We've got it lined up so well that this might go pretty quickly. So we put our first stitch in. We're going to tie this at the midway point on the inside of the shoe. And this is going to prevent it from pulling through at the end. Okay. So you can see it stops whenever I'm pulling there. Doesn't pull through. That's what we want. We go to our second stitch, and we create that loop, and then we pull the inside thread through the loop and tighten it. And I have another video where I specifically cover midsole stitching. So if you want a closer look at that specifically, it's out there. I'm going to do these pretty fast. The holes are lining up perfectly, which is a good sign. When the holes line up, you'll be able to feel it because you won't have to put really any force in. Like the owl will just glide in. You see how I'm not having to press at all. It just goes in nice and smooth. If you hit a point, which I probably will at some point in this shoe, it's really rare that you get them all lined up like that. But if you hit a point where it's not lined up, you'll have to press a lot harder and punch a new hole. So we'll see if that happens. We're looking really good so far though. I had a feeling this one was gonna go pretty smooth. The most difficult part is always the toe, because you can't really see what you're doing. and it's a really small space to try to work your hand. And it can be really difficult trying to like loop that inside piece in and tie the knot. And that can be compounded if you're reusing the original thread. Today, luckily, this is just plain white thread, so I'm able to just cut a really long piece of it and not really worry about wasting any excess. But if we were reusing an original colored thread, that's a color that can't easily be found or replaced, then we would have a lot less wiggle room, and the thread would be a lot shorter when we'd be at the toe. But thankfully we've got a pretty easy one today. I've been able to get every single stitch so far into the original hole. We're about 15 or 20 in. I think there's usually 60. So we're making good progress here. Almost stabbed myself there. Be careful because the outlet's going to be really sharp. And if you do stab yourself, take like 5 minutes so you don't bleed on your shoe. That also usually happens around the toe area. Okay, so we might have to punch our first new hole here. I don't know why, but I just can't find the old one. So when you're punching a new one, you want to kind of just slowly twist back and forth rather than just plunging it and putting pressure in. If you plunge it and put pressure in, there's strong possibility that you will severely injure yourself. I've come close to it. Thankfully, I haven't had anything too bad happen yet. I've definitely made myself bleed plenty of times, but nothing like hospital worthy. But this is kind of dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So just be mindful, take your time with it, and be careful how much pressure you're putting in and where you're putting your hands inside the brace. Okay, so I had to punch a couple new holes there, but this next one I got back into the original, which is a good sign. That one also went into the original. Cool. That time I had to punch one. Alright, we're back in the original hole again. Hard time finding the inside rope. There we go. Make sure that you're pulling these tight too as you're laying each stitch. So what I mean by that is, here, I'll show on this next one. We're gonna put it in, pull it back a little bit, take the left side, and then we pull here, and that's pulling all those stitches tight. And then we take the inside string through the loop, and we take both strings and we pull tight again. And that's how you make sure that your stitching is factory tight as you're doing this by hand. But that first pull is really, really important. Otherwise your stitching is gonna be loose. We're almost done here. And I would say this one went beautifully. It's just perfect for the video. I got an easy one for you. They typically do not cooperate this well, but today is a lucky day. Probably gonna take a quick intermission after I do this right shoe before we repeat the process on the left. I would say all but about 10 of these went into the original stitch hole, which is a really good sign. That means it's pretty much exactly lined up how it was before. You're never gonna get every single one in there, or at least I haven't, but if you can get that many of them in there, you're definitely lined up well. Alright, so last one is a little bit different. You saw I just pulled it through there. We're gonna tie both the strings together on the inside. Once to get it tight, get it as tight as you can. Knot it to keep it in place. Take 2 strings, cut the excess. Lay them flat in the inside. Now we can put our insole back in, cover the strings. Okay. Insole fit back in there perfectly, which means it's shaped correctly. Nice. Alright, so I'm gonna bring it close to the camera so you can see why I stitched it first. And now we're gonna heat it and try to seal it, and then tomorrow, or maybe 2 days from now. There's something flying by my head. We'll stress test it, and then we'll fix any weak spots and do our final touches. But here it is. You can see that gap that we had at the toe is almost completely gone. Gap that we had at the heel is pretty tight. And just all the way around, it almost looks like it's already been sealed. So that's gonna make our next step way easier when we go to heat this. I'm not gonna have to put nearly as much pressure in. I'll just be able to kind of just, move my thumb and my finger around and give it a good little press, and it should seal right up. And then we'll be able to test it in a couple days. But yeah, this shoe went really, really well. You can see it's sitting nice and even. Got the original shape. The back will really help you guide as well. They have like this little strip of leather here That should be nice and centered. You can see there that it is. So yeah, this one came out nice. We'll get started on the clamping. Move that out. Now you don't want to overheat here, because that could damage the material that you're working with. This leather's pretty resilient, so you'd have to get this really hot to damage it, but we're still not going to overdo anything. Also, if you apply too much heat to the sole, it can discolor the sole. Like, it can start to go yellow, almost like if it was oxidized. And then you'd have to basically ice it back with some sole sauce. We're gonna get that a little hot, not too hot. And just press it. So I'm using my thumb and then my fingers on the inside to press the two sides together. And pull up so you can see. But it seems to be working how I wanted it to. And you can see on that side now that we're nice and tight. We'll keep applying a little bit more pressure just to make sure, but I think that's gonna bond up pretty well. We'll go section by section here. I think that's usually the best way to do this sealing process, unless you have like a hydraulic press, which I would really like to get, but the tariffs might make that a little more difficult. We'll see. So I'm gonna go just all the way around. Right now I'm going counterclockwise. And just activate this section by section. Might not be perfect after this, that's okay. We can fix up any weak spots and clean it up a bit when we go to do the final touches. But right now we just want to make sure that like our initial fitment and placement and everything is as solid as it can be. Try to get these edges as tight as we can so that we have less work to do later. Just make sure that everything looks nice. Alright, that portion should be good. And we'll just go in little section by section, maybe like 3-4 inches of sole at a time. Always make sure that you're bracing the inside, because if you're just putting pressure on the outside, it's not really gonna seal. So ideally you'd have a last. That can be a bit expensive, because each last, I think each set is around like maybe 75, and you would need it in half sizes, and it would only work for one specific type of shoe. So like if I wanted to have a full size run of lasts for Air Force Ones and like men's 7 to 13, probably run me about $1,000. So down the line, I might invest in that, but right now budget's a little tight for that to get $1,000 worth of lasts. You want to be careful on this part too that you're not burning your hands. Like if you get this a little too hot and then try to press it immediately after, you could hurt yourself. And the toe is usually a problem area. On this one, it looks like it's going pretty well, clamping up nice. But usually you'll have the most separation if you do have it right here around the toe. And that seems to be the common theme for sole swaps, is just the toe is always the problem area. Generally where you see the most separation when you do have an older pair that needs to be serviced. And then it's also where you see the most failures in your swaps. And the hardest area to clamp usually. Especially if you're doing it by hand. This one was looking good though. So we'll keep going. There's a tiny bit of excess glue on this inside here. So while it's hot, I'm going to take my pen cap, just run it along. Nice. Okay. Keep moving. We're a little more than halfway done with this part of the process. I think we started on the middle of the other side. this step of the process for the shoe is done. We'll let this one hang out for a little bit and then stress test it and fix the weak spots later. I'll bring it closer to the camera so you can see. But you can see almost all of those gaps that we had before are gone. There are some gaps left that are really small. You can see there's a little bit of lift right there, right there, right there, here. And so what happens there is sometimes you don't get your adhesive all the way to the old line on your first run. And that's normal because you're trying to be careful not going over the old glue line onto the uppers. So it makes sense that you would be a little conservative and maybe miss some spots that are right at that line. So what we'll do after we stress test it and expose any other weak spots that are in the bond here, we'll take one of these owls and we'll dip it into the barge, and then we'll just line one more line around the top. We'll clear any excess first, and then we'll do that. And then we'll just basically repeat the same process that we just did and seal it one more time. Because you want these things to be able to stay sealed through years of wear and use. So it's always important to do that. Stress test, find those weak spots, fix them if there are any. If not, great. I mean, you might not have some. Usually every pair is going to have like a handful, like one or two. This one fit really, really nice. So I would say that this swap is successful. The hard parts are done. Now it's just gonna be, tightening everything up and then giving it like a quick cleaning and then maybe touching up some paint in an area or two. Like I'll probably paint the air tab for free. I usually do that on every pair that comes through. So yeah, hope y'all have enjoyed so far. I'm gonna go ahead and pause it. I will videotape the other shoe and then try to splice them together. And if not, sorry for lying in this part of the clip, but yeah, that's basically how it's done. I gave away some of my biggest like trade secrets in that video, as far as like heating from the inside and then stitching before heating for like the clamp that we did all the way around the shoe. So hope that was helpful, and I'll see you again in a couple minutes, maybe. So I wasn't sure how well I filmed that close up on the last video because I can't really see what I'm filming until afterwards. So I wanted to get one in hand so y'all can really see how nicely that was placed. And you can see, and the right shoe is usually the problem shoe. But yeah, you can see the toe is nice and straight, perfect, gap almost completely gone, beautiful fitment. Back is right at the line, perfectly centered. Killed it. So we'll get on the other one in a minute, but just wanted to make sure that y'all see that close up. That was a fun one.